What's the leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
Jon Stewart absolutely manhandled an Oklahoma state senator during a recent interview on his Apple TV show in a discussion about gun rights. So, in this video, I have 3 clips to share. I'm also going to sprinkle in some stats and facts and make a comparison to Canada as well. As a Canadian, I can maybe give a unique perspective on this issue. And just before I even get into this, why do people go on Jon Stewart's show? Like, that are going to be in a debate with him? You're not going to win. Like, you know, maybe he wants notoriety, wants to be known because he's a state senator. This guy's not well known, but this doesn't help you, I don't think. But this is going to be State Senator Nathan Dahm, a Republican of Oklahoma, and he has penned several bills loosening gun restrictions, including the nation's first anti-red flag law against restricting gun access to those deemed dangerous. So this is a real piece of work here. So here is the first clip, and I mean, it's very clear this guy is not really good at defending his positions.
I'm not against the Second Amendment. I don't want to ban guns. But you're saying more guns makes us more safe.
Yes.
So when we got 400 million guns in the country, we had an increase and gun deaths went up. So when exactly does this curve hit that takes it down? Would 1 billion guns do it?
Let's just run those numbers, 400 million, 50,000. You're talking about less than a fraction of not even 1%, of 100th of a percent.
But it goes up, not down. So your argument is backwards.
But if you want, okay, so let's come up with a solution. Okay, so one of the issues, a contributing factor, again, I believe it's the individual that is the problem.
So your solution to that is give them more guns.
So I'm saying that because people are the problem, we need to look at the problems that those people are facing and how do we address it.
But you've removed the ability for the state to do that.
No, because you're...
If you don't have background checks and you don't have registration and permitting, how do you know who has a problem in terms of the people who you're giving a gun to?
All right. Before I get to the other clips and some information here, look, before I intro the video, I said that this guy is not good at defending his positions. This isn't really a debate. The evidence is clear. The evidence is very clear. So when the evidence is on your side, Jon Stewart has every advantage here because the other guy has to bullshit his way around an answer when he knows the facts don't back up what he's trying to push. More guns do not stop more crime, evidence shows. I mean, we shouldn't need to explain this, but it's very obvious from all the data from many studies that have been done. They go on to write here, about 30 careful studies show more guns are linked to more crimes. You also have Harvard here, the School of Public Health, saying where there are more guns, there is more homicide. This is a literature review. Our review of the academic literature found that a broad array of evidence indicates that gun availability is a risk factor for homicide, both in the U.S. and across high-income countries. Case control studies, ecological time series, and cross-sectional studies indicate that in homes, cities, states, and regions in the U.S. where there are more guns, both men and women are at a higher risk for homicide, particularly firearm homicide. It's very clear. There's also other factors here like suicide. So suicide accounts for actually more than half of U.S. gun deaths, which I don't think is a discussion that really comes up enough. Clearly, when you have access to a weapon, it is much easier for someone who is maybe incredibly depressed, hasn't gotten the treatment they need, to act on that feeling as opposed to being able to get the help that they need with maybe proper investment into healthcare and public services. There's also last point here, of course, active shooter incidents have become a lot more common in the U.S. in recent years as guns have become more common as well. Now let's get to the next clip, and then I'll get to, after that, discussing how this compares a bit to, or show you what Canada is doing differently in terms of registration and how that compares to the U.S.
Upon due
process,
upon other things.
So you're saying that registering is an infringement?
Yes.
Okay. Is voting a right?
It's a right for citizens, yes.
Do you have to do anything to do it?
Yes.
What do you have to do?
It depends on the state.
What do you have to do?
Sometimes you have to be at least 18 years old.
What do you have to do?
And in some places you have to have a government-issued ID.
What do you have to? You have to
You have to be on the voter rolls.
register. You have to register. So you have to register to a right. Is that an infringement?
Does the right to voting say shall not be infringed?
Oh, so this is just a semantic argument now.
No, it's not.
You believe voting rights can be infringed because it doesn't say specifically shall not be infringed.
Is it an infringement upon a 17-year-old's right to vote, since they don't have that right to vote?
No.
Oh, it's not an infringement on them?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
Because you're the one making the argument, not me. I'm saying even rights have responsibilities, and that within those responsibilities are responsibilities and order. Otherwise, it's chaotic.
This is such a great point, and again, flies in the face of this argument that, oh, it's a right to own a firearm, so that means there can't be any restrictions at all. So should you be able to own a nuclear weapon? Should you be able to drive around in a loaded tank? Like, there are restrictions. There are not many of them, but there are restrictions on firearms that you can own. And there are obvious restrictions on other rights, like voting. So to try and claim this all or nothing approach is the way to go when you don't apply that to anything else is clearly ridiculous. And to set up the comparison to Canada here just briefly. So as of January 1st, 2019, 7 states and DC require individuals to register their ownership of certain firearms with local law enforcement agencies. Another 9 states explicitly prohibited the creation of such registries. The remaining states neither required registration of firearms nor prohibited the creation of those registries. So compare that to Canada. Like the idea to me that you can own a deadly weapon and no one has to know. There's no process at all. You could just go to the store, pick it up, and come home, or maybe wait, a day in some places. It is crazy. So in Canada, I've done a proper breakdown discussing this, so I'll link to that below the video. But there is a licensing process to actually be able to even buy a weapon. So there's a firearms license that shows that the license holder can possess and use firearms. That's a long process. After you pass the test, because there's training and all that, I think it's like a 30-day waiting period before you're actually able to then buy a weapon, because during that waiting period, they then do a background check on you. They talk to your current and former partners to get their opinion on you and if you're someone who should be allowed to own a firearm. And then on top of that, there's the registration for each individual firearm that you own. So a registration certificate identifies a firearm and links the firearm to its owner. You need a registration certificate for registered and prohibited firearms. And usually if you're in possession of a firearm, you need a license even if you are not the owner and never handle the firearm. So even if you are in possession of it and it's not yours, you still need a license to be able to have that in your possession. There are very strict rules around this, as there should be. And again, if you want the full discussion around this, I'll link to a video that I did discussing that below here in the description box on YouTube. But other data here. So Americans support stricter gun laws. This is from a Gallup poll from October 2022. How Americans feel about U.S. gun laws. Percentage of people who said laws should be made more strict. 57%, kept as now, 32%, and less strict, only 10%. So only 10% of people agree with the state senator. Yet, people like him are the ones winning the arguments. And why is that? Well, at least partially, it's because of the money involved. Gun rights groups have spent more than gun control groups in most recent years. So you see, regardless of year, actually 2018, surprisingly, not an election year, maybe that's the difference there. But then, 2016, not even close. 2020, again, a lot more being spent by gun rights groups. But it's not even just the money. There is the people that are diehard about this issue, they only vote because of this issue. So Republicans, they want to keep that very narrow-minded voting base. So what they do is what they feel like they have to do. They have to speak to these issues in a way that it just flies in the face of any data, any information, or any safety at all about the actual people in the country. Now let's get to the last clip here, which I have to say is my favorite. It's because of how Jon Stewart completely exposes how insane these people are. But here it is.
I'll go you one further. You want to ban drag show readings to children.
To minors,
Why?
yes.
Why?
Why?
What are you protecting?
Why can we prohibit children from voting, those under 18 from voting?
Why are you
but
banning?
Also that.
Is that free speech? Are you infringing on that performer's free speech?
They can continue to exercise their free speech, just not in front of a child.
Why?
Because the government does have a responsibility to protect.
I'm sorry?
The government does have a responsibility in certain instances to
What's
protect
the
children.
leading cause of death amongst children in this country? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's not drag show readings to children.
Correct, yes.
So what is it?
I'm presuming you're going to say it's firearms.
No, I'm not going to say it like it's an opinion. That's what it is. It's firearms. More than cancer, more than car accidents. And what you're telling me is you don't mind infringing free speech to protect children from this amorphous thing that you think of. But when it comes to children that have died, you don't give a flying fuck to stop that because that shall not be infringed. That is hypocrisy at its highest order.
That's the end of the argument. What else do you have to say? These people are obsessed with drag time story hour. Drag shows have been a staple in American culture, Canadian culture, maybe European culture. I don't know enough. But I'm sure it's been everywhere for decades. It's never been an issue. But now, because they really have nothing else to talk about, they're grasping at straws, trying to find ways to rile people up to vote for Republicans. And you have an actual threat to children being guns, which, yes, as Jon Stewart says, now kill more children and young adults than car crashes do. How can you possibly pretend you care at all about children when you are pushing to get guns in the hands of more people, including dangerous criminals, people deemed dangerous? You want them to be able to get weapons. That's what this senator has fought for. Some other stats to end on here. An international comparison of gun-related killings as a percentage of all homicides. So you see the U.S. here, 79% compared to the U.K. at 4%, Canada 37%, Australia 13%. And top 10 civilian gun-owning countries. Yeah, it's not even close. So, I don't know. I enjoy discussions like this because it so clearly lays out how empty the arguments are from these gun nuts. But ultimately, I think a lot of them are aware that their arguments don't make any sense. And all they care about is their ability to own as many guns as they want and not have to worry that, what if I break the law and that impacts my ability to own a firearm? They don't want to have to worry about any of that. They want to be able to own as many as they want without any restrictions at all. And that's what people like this senator, again, his name, Nathan Dahm, a Republican in Oklahoma, that's what they fight for.